Mr. Dog Poop did it again. Apparently, somebody told him if you want to run a movie studio, you need a lot of light. So he went out and bought the biggest light stand in the world. Why does he need the biggest light stand in the world? Because he also bought the world's biggest light. The only problem is it don't crank. The stand is stuck. So he comes to me and says, "Hey, can you fix this?" "Sure, Mr. Dog Poop, I can fix it." Now that we have it apart and we've taken a look at it, we've pretty much figured out what the problem is. So the way this works is there's a gear on the outside of the tube, a gear on the inside, and that just turns it. That just slides in there. And then a handle turns it. There's a release to release it, and then you can just crank it back and forth. Now, that's pretty easy to understand because as the gear turns, this goes back and forth, and there's not a lot that can go wrong with that. So in order to get height out of the stand, you have to have a second stage. And the way the second stage works is this part is connected to the bottom, and as the first stage goes up, it pulls up on a second stage, which is attached to this pipe, through this bicycle chain and through a gear. So there's a chain. The chain works on a gear and it pulls this piece up, pushing the other stage up, and then likewise coming back down. The problem that we encounter is that it's a chain, and the chain sometimes binds up and then it can't go. So the chain is binding up, and even when we took this thing apart, it was a nightmare because the chain kept binding up in the tube and we couldn't get it out and didn't really know how it was put together. So it took a few hours just to get it apart and figure out what was going on. So is the chain bad because it had years of use, or is the chain bad because it's just bad engineering? So the chain hooks in through a master link, just like a bicycle chain, into this little pin. The problem is these links are just binding up. They just get in a position and they can't fit through the gear. So you got this $8,000 Crank-O-Vator that can't be cranked because of a $2 bicycle chain. The way I'm going to solve that is by trading the bicycle chain for stainless steel cable. And the cable fits right through this. The cable's actually stronger than the chain. Stainless steel cable's got about 2,000 pound capacity. The crimps should have about 250 pound capacity. We'll put a couple of them on there, and it should easily hold 150 pounds, which is the rating of the stand. So that fits just as nicely as the chain. We're going to flip it over, put some crimps on it, put it all back together. So we're disconnecting the bicycle chain and pulling it out. Goodbye, Schwinn. Pop that out. And that is the little gear, and that's just, like I said, bicycle chain holding up $8,000 Crank-O-Vator stand. We take the same pin. I have another bearing, and I just cut a little slot, and it's just an aluminum wheel with basically a skateboard bearing, and we're going to replace that. And here, put the pin back in, put the connector on it, and now we're going to run the stainless steel cable through here instead of the chain. And the cable isn't going to be able to bind up. hopefully it'll work. We're gonna find out here. So let me go ahead and put this thing together. So we'll just kind of get a general idea of how much cable we need. And we'll give ourselves some extra to do the crimps. I bought the stainless steel cable on Amazon, and it came with cutters which work out really nice. So they cut the cable pretty cleanly. It gives us a pretty clean cut. We're going to put the cable through, and then we need 1/8 inch ferrule or a crimp to go through there. Slide that through that end. We're going to slide the other end through here. I want to bring it in so it's tight and it fits through. I'm going to go ahead and squeeze this together with some pliers so we get a little bit tighter fit. Bring this right down to it. And then before I crimp it, I'm going to put a second one in so we just have a little bit better hold. Second one goes on. That'll give us, put a little space in between them. I bought the crimping tool on Amazon. It's iCrimp. I want to say it was probably around $30. And the size for 1/8 inch is on it. So we're using 1/8 inch cable, and it says to use the large one. I don't think that's correct. We're going to use 3. We can get 2 crimps on each one, so go ahead and crimp it there, and then we can move down the ferrule to the next spot. Now, as an extra safety measure, just because I can, I'm going to put a single on this side so it can't pull through here. I don't think it's going to, but I like to just add as much safety as possible. So I'm going to put this here on one side and crimp that down. So for some reason, if these don't hold, that'll keep it from sliding through there. Just a little extra safety. Cut this off. If you're wondering if the cable is going to be strong enough, the chain holds the pin. This is just a bicycle chain with a little pin. So there's not a lot of metal left after you have a 1/4 inch pin with a almost 1/4 inch hole in it. So there's not a lot of strength there, but enough. Certainly not the strength of an 1/8 inch cable. So the cable's not going to be your weak point. These are going to be your weak point. The chain is just unnecessary and problematic. One end of the chain is done. I'm going to go through up around my pulley, just like the chain. That's going to pull that up and down. But this isn't going to bind up and twist and bind up like the chain did. Well, at least that's the theory. If I'm still employed tomorrow by Mr. Dog Poop, we'll know it worked. The other end comes through the bottom, and that piece, that's adjustable through the bottom, and they have to put some extra, since I don't really know what I'm doing. I should make it the same length as the chain, but it's just hard to get a measure. In order for us to put this in, we first have to put the ferrules in on this end so that we can come back up through it. Then go through the pin. And then we can put these back through here. And we'll try to figure out what actual size we need. The easy way would be to measure it against the chain. But I never do things the easy way, and Mr. Dogproof never gives me easy things to do. Again, I'm going to squeeze this down a little bit because it's not going to give us the little extra help. It'll be as tight. And if I have to go back and cut it again, I'm just not going to show you, and I'll act like I actually got it right the first time. Worst case scenario, we lose a little bit of lift on our, little bit of height on our thing. So go ahead and crimp this side in. And follow protocol, again, put another piece, a single piece on here that just in case these slip, it has to pull that other crimp through. This isn't exactly the right size, but it'll do what we want it to do. I'm going to cut this one off so it's a little bit easier to put on. Pretty nice, they cut the cable very nicely. Don't cut little pieces off because this will all unravel and shoot all over the place. So try to keep it in, you know, pieces that'll stay together if you're cutting and trimming. Got that crimped on. There's one little pin that goes on here. This just goes into a slot here, and can usually get that in by getting one side in and then just using a screwdriver to get the rest of the way. If you can get one side. Instead of doing it on a table, I'm trying to do it where I can show it. This is the stupid pin that came with it. I prefer an E-clip. So there, we put an E-clip on it instead of the stupid pin that was on it. Theoretically, this is going to work better than the chain, but we're going to find out in Act 2, Reassembly, right after this beer. Okay, we pre-assembled this tube, which is just putting our assembly back into this tube. This goes in the bottom of this tube, and that tube goes in the end. So, unfortunately, it's been about 2 months since we took it apart. It's kind of hard to remember how to put it all back together, but we're going to give it a shot. We've got all the pieces here. This piece goes in here, and this piece goes on the end, so I guess the end of that thing. So I'm going to fumble through and try to get these three pieces back together. Well, I'm really going to be in trouble if this doesn't come out. So, got it together, got this piece together, almost, put a few more screws in. It's kind of heavy. Bring it up and slide this in the top. Need to make sure these holes get lined up. I'm going to pop this with a mallet. Then all I have to do is put this bottom back on, and there's two holes in the bottom. And this comes through one of them and gets tightened down so that we get the right height. This again has 3 holes. Push this in, push this all the way down. So that's as far down as we're gonna go. And here's our thing, and look at that. This top piece comes out just like it's supposed to. That goes down to there. Looks like it almost lines up. I think that stand has to go up a little bit. This part has to go up a little bit for us to get that. We'll have to fix that. But in the immediate term, without finishing all the details, putting the clutch back together, which is going to be a project to figure out. This piece goes on the top. Uh-oh. Ow! Oops. Still have to put the clutch back together, put all that in, but push this in and as we go up, now we have to obviously tighten this stuff down. Need a screw in there. But you can see now the top is going up, something that it didn't do before. You have to push this down and so that should come down. And it will if there's weight on it. And that, I think, was the problem, really. The problem was that the chain, without the weight, without heavy weight on the top, 100 pounds or something, the chain wasn't coming back down. It was binding up, and then we couldn't crank it up or down. And as you can see, with a cable, you're not going to have that problem. We've got a few details to finish up, a couple more beers to drink. We'll show it to Mr. Dog Poop and ask him if we still have jobs. Whatever you do, don't leave this in the video. I don't want anybody to know I had to go back and take it apart and cut it shorter because I was too lazy to measure it in the first place. You got it? All right.